All right, Jason with Wealth and Eyes here, and I am joined today. If you like learning about flipping money, flipping land, all things entrepreneurial, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. And do me a favor, help the algorithm out and hit that like button. I am joined today by my friend and brother, Jeremy, who's going to do my very first Zoom interview that some of you have asked for about land flipping. So I guess just kind of introduce yourself to my audience, Jeremy, and kind of what your background is and how you got started or what made you want to get started in land flipping.
Sure. So, this guy's brother. Been doing land flipping for not very long, just a little over a year. My background is I'm an IT computer nerd guy. Worked at school system for almost 10 years, I guess, doing IT stuff. And then in 2011, went out and started on my own, just doing some contract IT stuff, some web design, that kind of thing. And just sort of chugging along, sort of like Jason, trying to figure out different ways to make money. I had a little bit different because I didn't have that steady income coming in from a regular job, and fell on my face a few times, and then started hearing about Jason's land deals he was doing. Oh yeah, I sold a property, made this much money. I'm like, huh. And that went on for a few years, and finally I said, all right, you got to tell me what you're doing, and sort of walked me through the process and directed me to.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now because it looked like you went frozen for a second, but I got you now.
Maybe I need to move closer to my Wi-Fi. All right. Technical issues. So what has been, how many land deals have you done? Let's start there.
So I've completed 2 full deals from purchase to sell, and then I've got one property that's been a little problematic for me. I bought it and haven't sold it yet.
Okay. And was that property different than the other two?
Yes, it was different. And it was when I bought it, I was sort of on the fence about it. But I went ahead and bought it anyway because it wasn't a huge amount of money. And I figured even if it takes a while to sell it, I can't lose money. I doubt I will lose money on it.
So one of my what I would call my worst land deals, I bought for $500, I think, and it took me 2 or 3 years to sell it, and I ended up selling it for something like $2,000, $2,500. So when you look at the actual numbers, it's still really good returns.
Right.
It just some of them take longer than others. So
And I might have got spoiled on my first 2 deals and expected them to move faster than what's probably feasible, but in a normal case.
so let's dive into that a little bit. So tell me about your first deal
So
and go into as much detail as you're comfortable with.
my first deal was right literally at the beginning of all of this pandemic stuff that started. So I started mailing letters in November of 2019. And it's sent out, just small little bits. And then beginning of January, sent out probably my largest one at the time. It was maybe 1,000 letters, and started getting back those, the responses from them. And I finally got one back, made an offer. This property was actually not far from my physical location, maybe about 30 miles or so, maybe not even that far, 20 miles. And so the offer was for, I think, $5,200, and for a property that I thought was probably going to be worth about 15, 13 conservatively. So sent out an offer and surprisingly got it back, and started that process of closing.
All right, let me pause right there.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: the letters that you sent out, when you sent them out, did you said this one was kind of about 30 miles from your house? Did you focus on an area close to where you're at so you could go see the property for these first mailings, or was it based on value that you did? How did you choose your criteria?
No, I don't know that I did it based on something close to me. I don't, to be honest, I don't know that I remember why I chose that particular location. I think it was in the county. I think maybe the first time I mailed the county that I was in, and so maybe that's how that one ended up being. But I don't know that consciously I chose one close by. It just, I happened to be in a decent area for the criteria that's taught in those classes as far as what properties to look for. So,
And did you take calls on them, or did people submit something online, or did they send a letter back, or how did you do your initial offers?
So I told you I'm an IT guy. So by default, I have to be somewhat of an introvert, right? So I don't like to talk to people on the phone, which is actually kind of contrary to what's taught by the guru, you know. But I basically had a Google Voice phone number, and it essentially says if you want an offer, leave a voicemail, or I funnel them to a website. So since I'm a web guy, I built out a nice website to collect the leads, and I try to funnel them to that. Even in my letters, I give them a phone number in the letters just for credibility, but I'm trying to really funnel them to the website to fill out the form.
Okay, so now let's jump back to the closing process. So
Yeah, so I got this return signed offer, and of course you're ecstatic because you finally got a signed offer, and at the same time you're scared to death because here I am about to shell out $5,000 for a property that I hope I can sell.
And does this really work, or am I pulling the trigger on something that's ridiculous?
And you tell your wife, hey, listen, I'm going to spend $5,000 on a piece of property, but I hope I can sell it, you know? And so of course your wife says hesitantly, okay, let's try it. And I did that and started the process, sent it to the title company. Title company started working on it. And then when it came time to close, it was like a week before closing, it was crickets from the other party. No response, wouldn't reply to phone calls or emails, anything. And talked to the title company, and they said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, we're supposed to close in, it was at that point, it was like 4 days. I'm going to, it might have been before that. No, let me jump back. So it might have been 2 weeks before that, trying to do the closing, and she wouldn't reply. And finally I got a hold of her. I think I called her from a different phone number, and she answered. I told her who I was, about the property. And she said, we changed our mind. She didn't want to do that anymore. She thinks it's worth way more than that. And again, this was like right at the end of February, beginning of March. So all this stuff was going on. But there wasn't a lockdown per se in place at that point. And so, you know, I basically tried to encourage her, listen, we got an agreement. I think you should follow through with it, blah, blah, blah. In reality, I wasn't, you know, I'm not going to sue somebody over it. If they didn't want to sell it, they're not going to sell it. And so it went on, and I think I had a month and a half closing window is what I gave myself to begin with. And so when I got down to like a week left, so it had been probably 2 weeks since she had heard from me, maybe a little bit longer. I'm trying to remember all the details. I sent her a message. I think I texted her through my Google Voice line and said, listen, if I don't hear from you, we're supposed to close. The contract expires on this date. And if I don't hear from you, I'm going to cancel everything out. And I'm going to cancel the agreement and send it back to you. Well, she replied immediately. She said she changed her mind. No, I do want to sell. I do want to sell. Don't cancel it. So at this point, she had already gotten the packet, the FedEx packet from the title company that needed notaries and all of that. She started talking about how hard it was to find a notary, blah, blah, blah. And so I basically said, listen, you have 24 hours. I wanted to give her no ability to get out of it. Either she was going to follow through or she wasn't. So I said, you know, I've got X amount of dollars to invest in property, and you have 24 hours to get the packet notarized and back to FedEx, or I'm going to go ahead and cancel the contract. Well, lo and behold, she followed through and she did all that she needed to do, and we finally closed on the property relatively quickly.
That fear of loss will light a fire under people.
Well, and that was the thing, is I knew that if I didn't light a fire, it could drag on for, you know, another month or more. So I just sort of lit that little trigger to get her to do what she needed to do.
So let's move on to, do you still have that property, or that's one of the ones you sold?
No, that property was sold. So the moment I closed on it, I had a sign ready because it's not far from the house. I drove out to the property, and I'm a FAA drone pilot too. So I went ahead and took aerial photos of the property, put a sign out for sale, and went home and went ahead and put it on my website, put it on Zillow, and got it listed.
And how long did it take you to sell? And if you don't mind, what did you end up getting for it?
Yep. So I think it was on. I think from the day I closed it to the day I had a purchase contract was 3 weeks, and it was a developer that happened upon. I think he drove past the property is what really happened, and got my phone number off of that. Called me, and we worked out a deal. We split the closing costs. And I originally listed it for, what was my price? I think it was 21,000. I told you I thought it was worth 13. I said, I think out of your recommendation, I just put it at a high number.
It's easier to come down than it is to go up.
Yeah. And so I did that, put it up 21,000, and he offered, I think 18.5. That might have been his second offer. He might have started at like 15 or something, but we ended up at 18.5. He was worried about closing costs because I was going to use a title company. So I told him I knew the closing costs were going to be about $500. So I said, listen, I'll pay the closing costs, but it's going to be 18.9, which was what the final price was, 18.9. So all in, probably with closing costs on the purchase, I was about $6,200. And sold it for 18.9, minus some closing costs on the end. I think it was a little over 11,000 in profit on that one. In golly, what's that? A month, 2 months worth of time.
Not bad. And after the first deal, I bet the next time you bring a deal, your wife's like, "Yeah, let's go for it." I think this.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't too concerned about it after the first deal.
So 11,000 off your first deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, quick version. Now that we went through that one, what did your second deal look like? Well, let me ask you about the first deal. Was it a large property, like over an acre? Was it an
No, it was a
lot? What kind of property?
It was a little over half an acre in an HOA community. Now okay. That was larger. The average size in that community is probably 0.2 acres. So I think it was 0.38 acres. So it was almost twice. It was a larger lot. Okay. And that developer built a house and had the house built and property sold again within about 6 months.
Wow.
So.
Okay. And so you've done 2 successful flips so far, correct?
Yep. And
in the pandemic.
Right.
What was your second one? What did it look like?
Second one, it was actually as I was closing on this one, I had sent out another series of letters to a neighboring county and gotten a deal back from that. And so as I was closing this deal, I was in the process of purchasing the second deal. The second deal was sort of a strange property. I didn't know if again, a lot of these deals, you look at them and there's a lot of question marks as far as how can I sell it? Am I going to have trouble selling it? This property was on a major highway, but it was like miles from the city. It was sort of in between 2 large cities, and I think the closest town was maybe 10 or 15 miles. It was out there, and it was sort of a narrow lot, but it was on a major highway. There was no easement access to it. So like on those highways, there's usually drainage ditches, and right. You'd have to build like a culvert to get onto it. Didn't have that. And there were 2 smaller properties. And this guy basically had been given the property from his aunt 30 years ago. And he was just tired of paying taxes on it. His brother actually owned the property next door. I've been trying to buy that one, but haven't been successful yet. But it was, I think, 3/4 of an acre, and I paid $2,600 for it, $2,300 for it, plus closing costs. I was probably about $2,800.
Okay. And what did you end up selling that one for?
So yeah, so I did the same process with that one. As soon as I closed on it, I went out there, put a for sale sign on it, took drone photos, listed it on my website, listed it on Zillow, and I sold that one. It was almost the same time frame, about 3 weeks. I had an offer on the property for my full ask price, and my full ask price was $23,000. And
Wow.
again, that was one I thought was worth about 12. And you said, hey, just list it high. You can always come down. So I said, what the heck? I'll put 23,000 on it, thinking there's no way I'm going to get $23,000.
Now, if I remember correctly, that one was in an area that's experiencing a lot of growth right now, correct?
Well, the county in general, this area had a lot of strange issues. Like this, they had rezoned this area. I don't even know that the lot was buildable. I'm very clear on all of the wording that I don't say anything of what they can do with the property. If anybody asks if they can build a house, I tell them I'm not sure. This is the zoning. Call the county to see what you can do with it. So
Yep.
I'm not even positive what the guy was going to do.
So you're
It
just
sounded-
saying, here's some land, here's some dirt. You have to figure out what you're allowed to do with it.
Right. Now, I think there were houses nearby on neighboring properties. So whether those were built before they changed the zoning or whether they got variances or whatever, it sounded like it would be a difficult process when I talked to the county. But I just, you just make all those things clear up front and make no qualms about what the property can be used for, and then they can sort of do whatever they want with it. And so I'm not sure what the guy was going to do with it, if he's going to try to buy some neighboring land.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's sort of out in the middle of nowhere. So maybe he's just buying it for speculation moving forward.
So with this one, you made about 20, close to 20.
Yeah, it was a little over $20,000 in profit on this one property.
And then you have a property that you bought that you haven't sold yet. How much did you pay for that one?
I paid $2,200, maybe $2,100, something like that.
Okay. So if you take your $30,000 profit,
right,
and you back out, let's say you never sell the one that you bought for $2,100, you
okay,
still made $28,000 profit in a year.
Correct.
So if someone, I'm going to start trying to do these interviews with people who are kind of just starting off, because sometimes the person who's been doing it for 10 years and is making $300,000 a year, it's a little overwhelming to a new person.
Right.
But I like these interviews with people that are just learning. So if someone's thinking about getting started in land flipping, but the initial investment to learn how to do it is a little bit overwhelming to them, what would you suggest to somebody who's kind of on the fence, but they're like, I don't know if I want to spend the money to learn how to do this? What if it doesn't work? What would you say to that person?
What I would say is something I've learned in this entire process is that nobody ever got rich by not taking risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it needs to be a calculated risk, but there is something to be said about learning a new skill and investing some capital up front to learn something from somebody who's done it before. And so I would say to that person, obviously don't go into crazy amounts of debt trying to do something like this, but build up some reserves and invest some money to learn a new skill and see if you can make a profit out of it. None of our initial investment, our $5,200, it was not going to bankrupt our family.
Right.
It was a calculated risk. I don't know. Can you see my video still? It looks like it's frozen on my end.
Can't. It's frozen, but we can still hear you. So
is that any better? A little different video.
It's better. I can see you now. So I don't know if that's on my end.
No, I think it's on mine.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Man.
I will put links to this program down in the description, and maybe I'll put some of your links. Jeremy has a great crypto channel that's kind of taken off, so we'll put some of those down there. And thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit the notification bell. See you on the next video.
All right. We'll see you.